My name is Mason Hale. I used to study the sky for a living. Cloud patterns, temperature shifts, jet streams, all the tangled mess that is Earth's atmosphere. I was part of a global initiative called Project Halcyon. The world was already dying when we launched it. We just didn't know we'd make things worse. Now I wake up to the sound of wind clawing at the shelter's steel frame. Every day, the same gray light filters in through dust-streaked solar panels. The storm has no eye, no end, and no name that does it justice. But I remember when it started, when we tried to fix the planet and broke it instead. It began with hope. Back in 2027, the headlines were pure fire and ice. Antarctica sheds ice the size of France. Delhi hits 52 degrees Celsius. Mass deaths reported. Amazon rainforest burns for 100 days straight. We were circling the drain. The Paris Agreement had collapsed. UN climate treaties turned into lawsuits. Billionaire-funded carbon capture startups rose and failed like matchsticks in a monsoon. And then came Halcyon. Funded by a coalition of governments and private megacorps, Halcyon was the most ambitious geoengineering project in history. We weren't just going to reduce emissions, we were going to manipulate the weather directly. We launched a network of satellites called Stratos 1, each equipped with aerosol dispersal systems. Their goal? Inject reflective particulates, sulfates and engineered nanoparticles, into the stratosphere to bounce back solar radiation. Lower the global temperature by 2 degrees Celsius in 5 years. Stabilize the jet streams. Reduce extreme weather. It was science fiction made real, and I was part of it. I was stationed at the Andes Atmospheric Research Hub in Peru. Beautiful dry skies back then. My job was monitoring cloud formation and wind shear after dispersal events. But something was off. Within 6 months of full activation, storm systems in the Indian and Pacific Oceans started to behave oddly. Instead of dissipating over land or weakening with time, some began to loop. They doubled back, fed on their own tailwinds, and grew. I logged the anomalies. I flagged the changes. I sent a dozen urgent memos to Central Command in Zurich. The reply was always the same. The system is stabilizing. Short-term turbulence expected. Stay the course. Until the Siberian cyclone. Nobody had seen anything like it before. A cold core cyclone formed over the Russian tundra and pulled in moist air from the Arctic and Pacific simultaneously. It grew fast, too fast, and began interacting with a storm front over Mongolia. The two merged. That should have been impossible. Their air masses were incompatible. But it happened. Then it merged again, with a low-pressure system drifting west from Alaska. Suddenly, satellite images showed something unthinkable. One storm across half the northern hemisphere. They called it the anomalous gyre, a freak event. But it didn't dissipate. It started pulling other storms toward it. The sky became a spiral trap, and the earth fed it. Zurich ordered the shutdown of Stratos 1, but it was too late. The particles had already altered the thermal balance. Instead of cooling evenly, the atmosphere created high-pressure ridges and thermal vacuums, funnels that pulled weather patterns into one another. The jet streams cracked apart like shattered glass. In April 2028, 5 tropical storms formed simultaneously over the Atlantic, months before hurricane season. 3 of them merged in the Gulf of Mexico and slammed into the southeastern U.S. as Storm Leviathan. It destroyed Houston, then Dallas. Then it turned north into Kansas, feeding on dry air and farmland heat. Cities fell one after another. Caracas, Lagos, Bangkok. Ports were gone, crops withered. And the worst part? The sky never cleared. We were given 24 hours to abandon the Andes hub. The Halcyon Directive had failed. Every station was given coordinates to retreat to fallback shelters, pre-built in case of catastrophe. Ours was dug into a mountainside, armored, solar-powered, and equipped with 5 years of supplies. Only 6 of us made it in time. Now, 11 months later, the wind still howls. The global storm, what's left of it, circles the equator like a planetary scar. We don't know what's happening beyond our mountains. The satellites died weeks into the blackout. We haven't had a clear signal in 319 days. But something happened this morning. A beacon. Weak, distant, but human. It came from the other side of the continent. Someone's still out there. And we're going to find them. The storm's voice never stops. It moans through the valleys like something wounded and ancient. That morning, it seemed quieter for a moment, like the sky held its breath. And then we heard it. A static pulse, then a flicker. Repeat. This is Dr. Amelia Chen, Sanctuary Station Theta 9. We're alive. Repeat. We're alive. Then static again. We froze. Every pair of eyes in the shelter locked on the ancient comms console. For nearly a year, we'd heard nothing but wind, silence, or the occasional garbled data burst. But this was a voice. A name. A place. We were 6 when we sealed the shelter. Now we were 5. Dr. Tara Singh, engineer and system specialist. Early 30s, sharp as a scalpel, always doing mental math. Liam Osorio, our structural guy. Quiet, resourceful, built like a tank, but hated conflict. Noah Salazar, medical lead, former field medic. Jaded but deeply loyal, especially to Tara. Eleanor Reed, the youngest, our comms tech and crypto analyst. She had an almost psychic relationship with machines, but not with people. And me, Mason Hale, atmospheric scientist turned accidental leader. The 6th, Jules, was our hydrologist. He didn't make it through the 2nd month. His lungs gave out. Mold spores in the vent systems, maybe. Or maybe he just lost the will. We don't even know if it's real, Eleanor said, arms crossed, eyes flicking between us and the replay. She said Sanctuary Theta 9, Tara replied. That name was part of the Halcyon fallback plan. It's real. It could be an old loop, an echo. Eleanor wasn't wrong. Radio waves did strange things now. The ionosphere was warped, fragmented. But we all knew something else too. We couldn't stay here forever. Food stores were dwindling faster than they should have. Solar power was unreliable. Cloud density blocked 80% of output most days. And more than anything, we needed purpose. We had grown used to the storm, but not to stillness. The beacon signal gave us a direction, northeast toward the Brazilian highlands. Roughly 2,000 kilometers of fractured terrain, flooded lowlands, and unstable air masses stood between us and Theta 9. We salvaged 2 working e-bikes from the shed, military grade, solar recharging. They weren't fast, but they were silent. We loaded them with supply pods, sensor arrays, and the drone scout Tara had spent 6 months rebuilding from scrap and we wore exofilter suits, airtight environmental gear with integrated oxygen scrubbers. Outside air was a toxic slurry. Chemical residues, fungal spores, and microparticulates made breathing unaided a death sentence. Our weapons were low-tech. Machetes, knives, 1 working flare rifle, and Liam's absurd collection of sharpened metal tools. Guns jammed too easily now. Moisture and static ruined electronics in seconds. Noah found Jules' old notebook tucked in the vent near his bunk. He took it without a word and packed it. We left just before sunrise, or what passed for it now. The sky was a permanent bruise. The first hour was pure awe and horror. The mountains were cloaked in dense, ash-colored fog. Trees lay snapped like matchsticks. Rivers bled gray from the sky. The air carried a low electric hum, like something massive and alive stirred just beyond the clouds. The drones went first. They mapped ahead, feeding us real-time data. Landslides, abandoned highways, heat signatures. Most were false. Rotting buildings, wildlife, collapsed wind farms. But 2 signals, human body heat, registered about 30 kilometers southeast. One was stationary, the other moved erratically. "We check it out," I said. Noah looked uneasy. "Could be hostile. Could be help." The trail led us to a downed halcyon transport, one of the old crawler rigs used to haul materials to the satellite launch sites. It had skidded off a ridge and wedged itself into a gully. The outer hull was rusted and warped, its solar wings snapped like broken limbs. We climbed inside. The heat signature had been right. There was a body. Male, late 40s. ID badge still on his chest. Dr. Elias Wren, Systems Operations. He'd died maybe a few days ago. Not from injury, from starvation. There were empty cans, a dead solar charger, and a broken radio. But next to him was something we hadn't seen in months. Paper. A journal. His last entries told us Sanctuary Theta 9 was real and reachable. But it also warned. They're failing, one by one. The storm feeds on the field imbalance. Tell anyone who makes it, the answer is below, not above. "What does that mean?" Tara whispered. "We need to keep moving," I said. Noah closed Elias's eyes and covered him with a tarp. The storm grew worse on the 3rd day. Winds screamed above the tree line and the air crackled with static. Then we saw it. Black lightning arcing silently between the clouds. It didn't fork like regular lightning. It moved in curves, almost intelligent, jumping from cloud to cloud in a loop. The drone sensors shorted out mid-scan. We were nearly blind. Then something worse. Magnetic interference strong enough to pull Eleanor's compass off its gimbal. "That's not natural," she muttered. We camped that night in the ruins of an old monastery. The stone walls were thick, ancient, and somehow comforting. We heard voices on the wind, whispers. Not from outside, from the radio. No loop. Can't hold. Failed sequence. Sanctuary. Buried. 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 The storm was changing. Evolving. Or responding. The jungle we entered was not alive in any normal sense. Trees stood like petrified statues, leafless, their bark turned to brittle gray husks. The ground was soft underfoot, not from soil, but from layers of ash, bone, and organic slush. Something had swept through here. Not just the storm, but heat, pressure, radiation maybe. We kept our masks sealed tight. The drone, our mechanical guide, buzzed ahead like a loyal dog, scanning, mapping, pinging. Tara monitored it constantly, fingers gliding over her portable console. Every hour, we picked up fragments of the transmission from Theta 9. The signal was stable but weak. Still northeast, still calling. Alive, coordinates attached. Need assistance, we can explain. The terrain was treacherous. Melted steel towers jutted from the hills like forgotten spears. Feral cables dangled from ruined poles. Sometimes we passed whole towns buried in mud flows, only rooftops and weather vanes visible above the sludge. We didn't speak much. Even Eleanor had gone quiet. The storm pressed down from all sides. Every crackle of thunder made our skin crawl. Static danced on our visors. We were 5 still, but we would not remain 5. We heard it that night. Just after dusk, as Noah cooked something rehydrated and awful, and Liam reinforced the camp perimeter with wires and metal rods scavenged from a fallen relay tower. A shriek echoed from the east, long, ragged, inhuman. We froze. The wind fell still. Another shriek followed. Closer. Animal? Tara asked. Noah shook his head slowly. Or what used to be. We doused the lights. The drone dropped low and went silent. Then we saw it, just beyond the tree line. A limping figure wrapped in scorched plastic and tatters of what might have been a hazmat suit. Its movements were jerky, uneven. It carried something heavy across its back. A bag, a bundle. We couldn't tell. And it was talking. Or rather, muttering. Fast, non-stop. A jumble of numbers and phrases. Atmospheric pressure, 742. Omega collapse. Sanctuary. Hollow gates. It paused near our camp, as if sniffing the air. Liam gripped his machete. Noah slowly chambered the flare rifle. The figure twitched, and then bolted, moving unnaturally fast into the trees, vanishing into the black fog. None of us slept much. 2 days later, we found the collapsed research facility, Halcyon South, Node 4. Its reinforced gates had been melted down, like a blowtorch the size of a house had been turned on them. Inside, the complex lay in ruins, flooded in places, burned in others. Ceiling panels hung like dead skin. Every screen was dark, every lab looted or overturned. But power flickered dimly in the lower levels. We descended. Eleanor finally cracked the door encryption, one of the few remaining working doors. and we entered the sealed core. Inside were servers, blinking slowly, banks of them, still warm, still humming. And more, pods. Cryopods, 4 of them. 3 were dark. One still pulsed faintly. Inside, a woman, early 40s, skin pale, vitals faint, frozen mid-breath. Amelia Chen, Tara read aloud. Sanctuary Theta 9, backup field operations lead. She was the voice. The revival process was risky. She had been in stasis too long, and the systems had degraded. Noah administered hydration and thermal shock stimulation, while Tara managed the thaw sequence. I watched her eyelids flutter. Then she gasped. She coughed, sputtered, and then slowly focused on us. Where are we? Halcyon South, I said. You were broadcasting. We followed your signal. She closed her eyes, breathing ragged. No, that wasn't me. That was the relay. I said it before I entered the pod, 9 months ago. Sanctuary Theta 9? Tara asked. Amelia's eyes locked on hers. Still operational, but compromised. How? She looked past us, like listening to something deep underground. It's not the storm anymore, she whispered. It's feeding off us. She led us to the lower archives, where we found what remained of Halcyon's deep records. Here was the truth. The storm didn't form naturally. It had begun as a geoengineering experiment. An attempt to reverse global temperature spikes by seeding the atmosphere with a new class of particulate reflectors. The project was called Hollow Sky. It was supposed to be temporary. But the reflectors reacted with upper atmosphere radiation. The storm cells didn't just merge, they looped. They created feedback, self-sustaining wind corridors. Every burst of lightning charged the next. The system learned. It became a planetary circulatory system, Amelia said. Alive, adaptive. We stared at the data. And then Eleanor spoke. There's a shutdown protocol. A digital key, a field device. A way to seed a reversal pattern. It had been built, just never deployed. Because Sanctuary, Theta 9, the final node, had sealed itself before the upload. And the device? Located below it. In the buried sector. We left that night. Amelia insisted on coming, despite her weakness. She carried Halcyon credentials, retinal access, and something more. Memories of what we were up against. We took what we could. Maps, nutrient packs, the remaining drone. We'd barely cleared the perimeter of the facility when we heard it again. The howler. It had followed us. But this time, it wasn't alone. From the tree line emerged more figures, wrapped in makeshift suits, dragging metal instruments, some wearing masks made of shattered solar panels. Survivors, but warped by months of exposure. Noah fired a flare. It screamed into the air, blinding. We ran, into the rain, into the dark. The signal from Theta 9 grew stronger. The storm rose to meet us. The approach to Sanctuary. Theta 9 was a wasteland of concrete and silence. We arrived by mid-morning, though time was a blur under that permanent, bruised sky. What used to be a towering hub of a halcyon infrastructure now looked more like a collapsed bunker partially devoured by mud and debris. Tower struts jutted from the ground like the bones of a long-dead god. The main entrance was buried beneath a landslide. But Amelia remembered another way in. She led us to a ventilation shaft. We used tools to widen it and descended into the facility's skeletal innards. Water dripped from every surface. Mold crept across plastic sheeting. The emergency lights blinked amber in long, slow pulses. Power's running on fallback grid, Tara said, but some systems are alive. We followed Amelia down silent halls and through sealed corridors she knew by heart. Eventually, we found the central chamber. Theta 9 was still sealed, still standing. But it wasn't empty. At first, we thought the survivors were statues. Figures sat slumped along the walls, backs against machinery. Blank eyes, respirators still clinging to faces. 20, 30. Liam moved in to check pulses. Some are alive, he whispered, barely dehydrated, catatonic. Tara examined their tablets, notebooks, and wall-scrawled data streams. They've been writing formulas, she murmured, trying to model something, maybe reverse it, maybe communicate with it. Amelia trembled. They heard it too, she said, the storm. What do you mean, heard it? I asked. She tapped her temple. It talks, not in words, but rhythms, frequencies. It started as a mistake, but it adapted. It created a pattern, a loop, a conscious structure. Liam swallowed. You're saying the storm is alive? It's not a storm anymore. It's an intelligence made of pressure and plasma and wind. And it knows we're trying to kill it. That's when the lights flickered, and the alarms began. The pulse wave hit the upper decks first. A deep, throbbing sound. A subsonic wave that made our bones ache. Lights shattered. Equipment sparked. Tara yelled over the roar. It's trying to collapse the infrastructure. Eleanor overrode the elevator locks. We descended fast, dropping hundreds of meters into the buried sector where the shutdown device was housed. We emerged into the machine chamber, a circular vault with a domed ceiling, humming with energy. In the center stood a metallic pod, hooked to crystalline data cores and liquid cooling arrays. The hollow key. Still intact, still dormant. Noah stepped forward to power it up. That's when one of the others, the catatonic survivors above, followed us down. Not to stop us. To beg us not to. Her name was Delia Voss, former systems engineer, halcyon clearance. She staggered into the chamber with wild eyes and bloody hands, whispering, "It's awake. It's listening. It forgives. It remakes." We tried to restrain her. She screamed, "If you stop it, the skies will open and what's left will burn." The storm had chosen some of them, shaped their minds with pressure waves and bioresonance, a hive bound by fear and static. Delia lunged for the hollow key. Liam caught her midair. They wrestled. In the chaos, a console was smashed. Data feeds went dark. Tara dove to reroute power. 3 minutes to stabilize, she shouted. Amelia looked at me, pale. If this doesn't work, I nodded. Then this is our tomb. We had to make a decision. The hollow key could only be deployed once. If it failed, Theta 9 would implode, swallowed by its own cooling core collapse. Noah looked at us, jaws set. There's no fallback. Tara completed the circuit. The machine hummed. A flicker of blue light spiraled outward. An inverse wave coded to break the atmospheric self-feedback loop. But we had to upload a full model of the storm, every shift, every node, every chaotic element. And it required a neural bridge to do it. Someone has to connect directly, Amelia said, and write it into the pattern. Silence. Then Eleanor stepped forward. No one else knows the protocols like I do. We tried to protest. She shook her head. I was born in this storm. Let me end it. She connected. Electrodes, stabilizers, liquid feed. The chamber lit up with arcs of lightning dancing across the containment field. Eleanor's eyes fluttered. The feed spiked. She's in, Tara whispered. For 3 minutes, we watched the storm's structure stream across the holosphere. Winds looping in fractal spirals, plasma tunnels from pole to pole. It was a living network, hungry, curious, angry. Eleanor began to speak, but not in words. Her voice echoed through the speakers in binary, then tone, then fragments of memory. Childhood. The first time she saw snow, the way her father held her hand when the world changed. Then silence. The machine clicked. The hollow key deployed. Outside, the sky screamed. The pressure broke. The moment the hollow key fired, the storm screamed. Not in sound, but in a gut-rattling, omnipresent absence, like a hole punched in the fabric of the world. One moment, the walls of Sanctuary Theta 9 rattled from endless pressure. The next, nothing. No wind, no tremor, no howl. Just silence. We stared at the monitors as the storm's tendrils collapsed in on themselves, like snakes folding into ash. Great cloud banks that had once girdled continents began to break, torn apart by interference pulses firing from the hollow key's signal structure. Eleanor lay slumped in the neural chair, breathing, barely. Tara checked her vitals. She's alive, in and out, but she'll never be the same. She saved us, Amelia whispered. Outside, for the first time in almost a year, the sky began to lighten. It didn't come all at once. The cloud banks didn't vanish in a movie magic flash. They peeled layer by reluctant layer, like old paint flaking from a damaged wall. We emerged from Theta 9 3 days after the hollow key fired. Between helping the survivors inside recover and stabilizing Eleanor's condition, we barely slept. But when we did go up, we saw it. A sliver of orange. Not fire, not emergency flares or bioluminescent clouds. Sunlight. Filtered. Dim. But real. Liam fell to his knees and laughed until he cried. I don't think I realized I was crying too, until Tara handed me a towel, her own eyes red. It's still broken, she said softly, but it's healing. The air smelled strange, thin, burnt ozone and dust. But it also smelled like outside. We spent the next few weeks helping pull more survivors from nearby wreckage zones. The hollow key signal had sent a shutdown wave across the planet's upper atmosphere. Not enough to end every storm cell, but enough to sever their collective behavior. The intelligence we had created, accidentally or not, was fractured. Weather began to behave like weather again. Still violent, still unpredictable, but not unified, not self-replicating, and not sentient. We began to receive weak signals from other sanctuaries. Crippled infrastructure meant only short-burst messages got through. But there were people, dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. The world wasn't dead, just broken. We could live with broken. We buried the dead outside Theta 9. The storm cultists who'd given their minds to the pressure, the engineers who tried to stop it and failed, the unnamed ones whose bodies had washed into the storm drains and never been recovered. Eleanor regained consciousness 2 weeks after the shutdown. She couldn't remember her time inside the neural bridge, but she smiled when we told her what she'd done. And then she said something that stuck with me. If the storm was alive, maybe it wasn't evil, just scared, just young, and we taught it how to die. It wasn't forgiveness, just understanding. We never rebuilt cities the way they were. Too risky, too centralized. Instead, we created arcs, scattered, resilient communities powered by microgrids and low-tech redundancy. Crops grew again, awkwardly at first, then stronger. People gathered by firelight and rebuilt old knowledge with new caution. Theta 9 became a memorial and a museum. The hollow key remained powered down, locked away in its vault beneath the earth. We didn't dare destroy it, but we didn't dare use it again either. As for us, me, Amelia, Liam, Tara, Eleanor, we stayed together, not as soldiers, not as saviors. Just people who survived something ancient and wild. I write this from Ark Emberfall, one of the new sky-ringed settlements near what used to be Oregon. There's a garden here, real soil, real tomatoes. This morning I woke up to birdsong. Not a recording. Not static across a battered radio. Real birdsong. The sky above still bears scars, streaks of high-altitude debris, occasional strange-colored clouds, auroras that don't belong. But yesterday, a child born after the storm pointed up and said, "Look, blue." And I realized she'd never seen it before. And still, she knew. Because no matter how dark the sky becomes, something inside us always remembers the light. It's hard to believe that a year and a half ago, the world was screaming. Not just the wind, though God knows the wind was loud enough to crack stone, but people too, screaming in fear, screaming for help, screaming because they didn't understand what was happening. Now, there's silence. Not the terrifying void we heard after the hollow key fired, but a peaceful, living silence. Like the earth is listening again. The storms had stripped most of the world's vegetation down to brittle bones, but some of it came back, defiant as weeds in a sidewalk crack. At Ark Emberfall, we've replanted old world seeds, tomatoes, corn, barley, kale. We trade with neighboring settlements that specialize in fish farming or solar ceramics. Everything we build now is decentralized, flexible, and renewable. No more towering cities with vertical dependencies. No more trusting AI to manage our weather. We learned. We paid dearly. But we learned. Eleanor passed away 2 months ago. She went peacefully, surrounded by the team. Her mind was never quite the same, but her heart, her soul, burned just as brightly as the day she walked into that vault to interface with the hollow key. We buried her on the ridge overlooking the broken control tower of Theta 9. We carved a stone, Eleanor Fay, the mind who dissolved the sky, a light that never dimmed. Children are growing up who never knew the storm. They hear about it in stories, in hushed campfire talks, in illustrated books that depict the massive black thunderheads that swirled across the world like angry gods. To them, it's myth. To us, it's memory. But that's how healing works. The pain doesn't vanish. It just becomes part of the foundation we build on. Like how new trees grow from the ashes of a wildfire. We tell them, this is why we never trust systems without fail-safes. This is why the sky needs guardians, not controllers. The hollow key isn't active anymore. But we still monitor faint pulses on the atmospheric bands. Remnants of the old storm, maybe? Or something else? Some think it was never just a feedback loop gone wild. Some think we woke something. Whatever the truth, we listen. And we remember. Because silence doesn't always mean safety. But now we're prepared. This is my last log. Not because the story ends here, but because my chapter does. We're handing leadership of Emberfall to a younger crew, the generation born after the year of storms. Their eyes are clearer, their hearts are lighter, and their hopes stretch further than ours ever could. Tara is going north to help a new oceanic settlement. Liam's teaching systems engineering. Amelia has taken up music, strange, beautiful string compositions that somehow sound like sunlight. As for me, I'm heading south. To see what survived. To see what thrived. And maybe, if I'm lucky, to see one more sunrise over a world that nearly drowned in darkness. And if someone, someday, finds these words carved into metal or pressed into paper, remember this. We endured. We healed. And when the sky finally cleared, we chose to rebuild. Not what we had, but what we needed.